Rhianna and Kerrick set to work planting a permaculture food forest that features extensive a collection of Northwest native plants, shrubs, and trees. It was important to them that their young children could eat from perennial foods from every part of their mini farm. VerdantPhoenix Farm sells organic plants, starts from their farm stand out front of their property, and is available for tours and classes coming soon. For more information, go to www.verdanphoenix.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Verdant Phoenix. My name is Rhianna Sims and I live here on this 1 acre paradise with my husband Kerrick and our 2 young children, Hazel and Rowan. We bought this property 10 years ago because we wanted to raise our family in a place where we could grow our own food and where we knew that we could put our farming practices to work. So here at Verdant Phoenix Farm, we've never rototilled our land at all. We've never tilled or turned over the soil, and we don't use any kind of synthetic inputs. We don't use herbicides or pesticides, and so we are a strictly organic urban mini farm. And so I'm really excited to show you some of the native plantings on our property where we have prioritized perennial foods, and specifically perennial native foods. An example of this, and maybe one of the best shrubs you can plant in your garden, is this amazing Amelanchier alnifolia, the serviceberry. This is a lovely shrub that has a rounded habit, has beautiful white flowers, and delicious berries. You can see some of the berries left over. But the serviceberry is really an excellent shrub to add, a native shrub to add to your landscape. So I want to show you around a bit today to show you how we have integrated native plants for food, for pollinators, for habitat, and for beauty. And so first we're going to head over to the hazelnut hedge and show you some of our plantings there. So these are 2 great examples of other native shrubs that you can plant. This is a Cornus stolonifera, a red twig dogwood, and it has beautiful fall color, beautiful red stems. It has a berry and lovely white flowers. So that's what's on the end cap here that then starts the hazelnut hedge down the way. And the hazelnuts start with our native hazelnut, the Corylus cornuta. You can see how delightful she is. She's round, a beautiful rounded tree, and still have hazelnuts here. And so part of our purpose of planting this native hazelnut is to be a pollinator, or to pollinate, to fertilize some of the other horticultural hazelnut varieties. So you can see down the row here we have about 5 or 6 hazelnut varieties that we've planted, and we've actually had an excellent harvest. And so this is a way to plant something native, but also have food on your property. And also we planted this for privacy and as a wind block. Some highlights here: this is a native gooseberry, a little prickly currant that makes a really beautiful small currant. Then we have a spirea and a snowberry, the Oregon grape, mixed in with some of our other plantings here. Thank you. So we're utilizing different types of shrubs that have spring blossom, fall color, the ways that you can integrate natives into your landscape. I want to introduce you to this beautiful evergreen, broadleaf evergreen, the silk tassel. This is a Garrya elliptica, or Freemonii. We have a native here. And this has these beautiful glossy evergreen leaves, has been fairly drought tolerant, and just has provided really beautiful privacy for us. And now you're walking into meeting some of the native conifers that also provide food. This conifer here next to us, and in the background here, these 2 pine trees. The the pine tree here on my left is a Pinus sabiniana, which is known as the gray pine, and it produces a large cone that has an edible seed, has an edible pine nut. And native people who lived in this area really saw the gray pine, the Pinus sabiniana, as an important food source. And what beautiful, soft, silvery needles and nice structure it has. People will often say, well, conifers grow too slow. I'm not going to plant that, but you can see the internodes and the candles on this pine that it's growing several feet a year and doing really well. Next, your eye comes to this beautiful madrone. This is the Arbutus menziei, our native madrone, which is a really nice addition in the landscape because it has that nice glossy evergreen leaf. It has a beautiful white flower and then followed by a red-orange berry. So we love our madrones and the Arbutus relatives that we can grow here. This little conifer is a pinon pine. This grows pine nuts. This is where pine nuts come from, and this is a native a little bit north of us, but is again another great way to add year-round interest and food to your garden. The next conifer I want to show you is this beautiful Baker cypress. This is Cupressus bakeri, and this is actually an endemic conifer to Southern Oregon and Northern California. It's one of the rarest trees in North America. So it has this wonderful smelling foliage and really nice blue-green needles and beautiful structure. Because of fire suppression, this tree has really, the landscape or the habitat of this tree has really diminished. So we love this Baker cypress. Welcome, we are in the other part of the yard here of our 1 acre, and I'm excited to show you the currants that we have. So this is a Ribes aureum. This is a golden currant that is native and produces huge black fruits that are delicious, both for people and for some of our native birds that rely on fruit. You can see the pollinators are loving it, and it has just these outstanding yellow flowers, and they're fairly drought tolerant. You can see over my shoulder here, this is another variety that gets a little bit taller of the golden currant, but we've created this hedge here with currants to keep our chickens in that area and the dogs out of the vegetable garden. So we actually have this living hedgerow to create that buffer. And as you look down the pathway, you can see on the left there is another planting of the thimbleberry, the Rubus parviflora. So another great way to get some perennial food in this thin area that has part shade. So my children love to come over here and pick thimbleberries, pick currants on their way to the orchard. So they know that there's a lot of food planted on this property and where to find it. So this is one of my favorite gardens on the property. Is right off our porch. So we have been inspired by permaculture at VerdantPhoenix Farm. So this is part of our Zone 1 that requires a little bit more water, a little bit more maintenance, and this is a nice dappled shade. And so here you can see this beautiful bleeding heart, the Dicentra formosa. Wonderful perennial, native perennial for the shade. You can also see in the background this lovely sword fern, the Polysticum unitum, this beautiful evergreen native fern, and then this showstopper, Ribes sanguineum, the red flowering currant. We don't put out hummingbird feeders because we have this shrub. The hummingbirds love this shrub. You can hear the pollinators right now. And so we also, it's not as visible, but we also have some native huckleberries planted in this area. And so this can be a wonderful combination for the shade for any urban landscape that's completely native plants, but drought tolerant and well adapted for our area. So just some show-stopping color today in the shade and one of my favorite garden spots. So at Verdant Phoenix, we have been really inspired by Masanobu Fukuoka, who has talked about integrating edible plants in all aspects of your landscape and really looking deeply at how we can mimic nature to do our best work in our landscapes and in our farming. And so here at Verdant Phoenix Farm, we're really trying to mimic nature in our work. And so what that means to us here in the orchard, we have this beautiful peach tree here that's blooming. We have this beautiful peach tree, but instead of having a manicured golf course kind of lawn underneath, we've actually left some of these areas a little bit more grassy as a beetle bank that are actually great for our native predator insects. We've also planted things like kale and chard, celery and bulbs, foods that will winter over so that when we're watering the orchard, we're also watering our food. And so right now, in the springtime, we're making really purposeful decisions about not cutting things back because the native pollinators actually need this protection. They need the long grass, they need the dry stems. That's where native bees actually lay their eggs, is in those hollow stems. And then our native predator insects and predator kittens use this grass for food, for habitat, and for the next generation. And so part of what we're doing here is, again, another permaculture principle, creating guilds. This looks a little different. So on the way to the front yard, we're here on the edge of our orchard. And this is part of where you can see the food forest, where we've planted edible grapes all along the perimeter around our orchard. So in our orchard as well, we have a loquat, we have a mulberry, we have a Chinese dogwood, we have elderberries that are also native. So we've tried to bring both the native plants into the orchard as well as bringing the food and created food that's integrated into our landscape, planted food. And so you can see the grapevines creating the perimeter and kind of the basket to our food forest. Welcome to our front yard. When we moved here 10 years ago, this front yard was full of juniper. Now, a native juniper can be great, but when it's sprawling all over the landscape, not only is it boring, but it also poses a fire risk. And so it is very fire prone, actually. So we removed all of that juniper and then planted native shrubs. So here to showcase some of those natives, we have this beautiful Archistaphyllus Howard McMinn that actually, just a second. Hello, welcome. This Howard McMinn is a beautiful broadleaf evergreen that has a really beautiful bark and also has a berry. This is an excellent way to plant an Archistaphyllus, something that's taller than kinnikinnick, but smaller than a madrone or a manzanita. Next to it, we have the native yew, the taxus. This is a very special native conifer that has mostly been logged out, but is wonderful for the landscape in partial shade. So another really great native conifer for part shade. Coming down the line here, coming down the road, you start to see native huckleberries. The Vaccinium ovitum here in a row. And this has been so fun for my children to come out and really learn where food comes from. They come out and pick the huckleberries and really see them as the medicine berries that they are. So delicious. We also have America, a part of a native laurel that is a multi-stem, beautiful native shrub. Right now in early spring, it's a little sparse, but fills out throughout the season. And then we have our state flower and one of the best natives you can plant, Oregon grape, Mahonia aquifolium. There are also shorter Oregon grape that don't get quite as tall. But this plant does everything. It is evergreen. It even has fall color. It blooms these beautiful blooms for the native pollinators, and then those blooms are followed by dark purple berries that are edible, maybe not delicious, but really beautiful. This is one of the best native plants you can plant in your landscape, and it is the Oregon state flower, so we should all have one in our landscapes. You can see behind it the other Archistaphyllus, the other Howard McMahon, and just those beautiful Ericaceae flowers, those little lanterns, and the bees are loving it. Here is a really great example of the evergreen huckleberry we were talking about earlier that needs part shade to full shade in our region, but really, really lovely shrub where when you're choosing in your part shade garden to really think about adding something native and adding a plant that also provides food. In these times, I think that that's going to be more and more important. And so having a row of huckleberries has been one of our favorite plantings we've done in the front yard so far, including our tour. And we are so grateful to this property. We've lived here for 10 years. One of our goals was to plant a sanctuary for our family, for our children, for pollinators, and animals of all kinds. And we feel like that we've been successful in that because we have not disturbed the soil. We've added organic matter. We've added diversity into the landscape. And so now in every area of our landscape, we are eating food over time. And that is such a gift that we are very grateful for. Thank you for sharing and for being part of this VerdantPhoenix tour. The last stop is the farm stand, so that if you need anything for your veggie garden, you might find it up front in our farm stand. Come check it out. So welcome to the VerdantPhoenix farm stand, where we sell organic plant starts for pollinators and for food. This has been a real dream come true, where we're able to plant seeds, organic seeds, in our commercial greenhouse and make them available to our community. As I learn more and more about locally adapted seeds, planting locally adapted seeds, and also starts from locally adapted seeds, they do that much better in the garden. So at VerdantPhoenix, we can help you with your garden. We've got some food to share, and we would love to be a resource for you in the future. Thanks so much for coming over.